Welcome back to the Patreon board. We'll start with the requests from 3 older patrons before moving on to the 2 newer ones in April, assuming they maintain their spots, of course. For now, the movie critic dude has asked me to do Garfield Gets Real, before replacing it with The Adventures of Pinocchio. And you know what? Considering the amount of Pinocchio films coming out this year, I can accept that. We've covered Pinocchio a couple times now, from Filmation's Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night to the Rankin Bass Pinocchio's Christmas special. Both had plenty of animal folk inhabiting it, but here we only have a cricket. That's it. The idea initially started with Jim Henson and director Steve Barron, who wanted to produce a live-action Pinocchio movie since 1986. And while Disney turned them down, the Kushner-Lock Company was interested in funding the project. The special effects were provided by Jim Henson's Creature Shop, Frame Store, and Cinesight, and the film had a budget of $25 million after it was released in 1996. It only grossed around $15 million and was negatively received by most critics. So how or why did this happen? Well, let's find out as we look at The Adventures of Pinocchio. We open on a young woodcarver named Geppetto, played by Martin Landau. He's carving a heart shape into a tree, as a way to remember his love for a woman whose name starts with an L. But when the heart is full and the heavens are listening,
magic is bound to happen.
Usually, when a tree gets struck by lightning, it has a chance of catching fire. But not this one. It's a magic tree. Now again, most adaptations do their own thing to explain how Pinocchio comes alive. Disney has the Blue Fairy do it, but here we settle on the wood having magical properties. So years later, it falls out of its stump and seems to roll up to Geppetto. So he decides to take it with him. That's probably more wood he's ever had outside of his love life. Anyway,
Life's the blushing, blooming rose of dawning, without this thing, without this thing.
Put a sock in it, Luigi!
well, how else is he and Mario supposed to make rent? It won't be a while until plumbing is invented. Otherwise, this Tuscan-looking village is like where most adaptations take place. I really like the set and costume designs on a technical level anyway. They really make this old world come to life. But the characters and story? Yeah, your mileage may vary. Here, Geppetto acts as a lonely puppet maker who gets made fun of by small children. And he also talks to his puppets more than he does his cat.
He said I have a funny nose.
I said you have a funny toes.
Funny nose.
Funny toes. Now stop it. I'm tired of hearing the two of you. Stop it!
He then tries to keep the fireplace going with the magic wood, but when it leaps out of there, he realizes that it's the one that he carved the heart on. He then decides to give this wood a puppet form.
Blue eyes, just like your papa. Now would you like your papa to show you how to walk? Huh? Yes?
The finished design is a bit more disturbing than what we're about to get. I think it's because the puppet is not alive yet, though.
We'll call you Pinocchio.
And then, as the puppet maker takes a bath, Pinocchio comes to life. Now again, Jim Henson's Creature Shop is responsible for this, and while the design feels a little bit uncanny, the effect work that goes into him, for the most part, is nothing short of amazing. It helps that he's a literal puppet, so his limitations with movement can be explained within the story. And that scene where he wakes up and takes in the world around him? Magical. In any case, he goes to Geppetto to show what happened.
It's happened. I finally lost lost my mind.
Oh, so that's why you thought the log he came out of leapt out of the fire? Here I thought you were just eccentric. Now, while I said the puppetry is good, there are still instances of obvious CGI for certain movements. Next, we see Pinocchio trying to catch a pigeon on the rooftops. I'm not sure how he manages to go from roof to roof because, yeah, he does this for so long that he finds himself far from home. Geppetto finally catches up to his creation, who then thinks he can fly like that bird. To be fair, he was only born like 5 minutes ago. Well, random street lady, you got your wish. Someone put a sock in him. By the way, the 2 Pinocchio adaptations I covered showed Geppetto treating Pinocchio like a son, because he always wanted one, but it's not the case here, even when Pinocchio keeps calling him Papa. And I should also mention that our main character is voiced by Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Imagine telling Corny that he was once born a puppet in one life, then living with Tim the Toolman in another. We also meet this woman named Leona, played by Genevieve Bujold. She looks like she knows Geppetto well, and she's not freaked out that Pinocchio is alive. Hell, she even offers the puppet some clothes. One thing is certain.
You even gave him your heart.
Our heart.
What did you say?
So yeah, she was the woman that Geppetto loved when he was younger. She doesn't seem to realize that, even after what he just said. As they walk home, Pinocchio tries imitating what everyone is doing, which results in some obvious screening effects. Now we're introduced to the fox and cat of this movie. Meet Volpe and Feline, played by Rob Schneider and Bebe Neuwirth respectively. They're both human in this version, but are still the thieving duo we all know too well. The only difference is that Feline is the smart one, while Volpe is the idiot.
Do you see what I see?
Yes. What?
How appropriate that a conniving person like Rob would fit so perfectly as a fox. Meanwhile, Pinocchio is developing an interest for what a real boy is, and he eventually finds one. Pinocchio gives chase after the ball, only to run into Feline and Volpe. Geppetto shows up to take him back, knowing that these two are troublemakers, so crisis averted. But first...
Son, I'll get your ball back.
My kid's ball, would you?
So now we get introduced to Lorenzini, played by Udo Kier. He is a combination of 3 characters from the original story. Mangiafuoco, the coachman, and even the terrible dogfish. How does he fill the last one, you ask? You'll see. Anyway, he has a thing for chili peppers.
Next week's puppet show must be the most spectacular ever. Every single boy must be in attendance.
And only boys, because he's going to take them to Pleasure Island later.
Lorenzini, darling.
Philinette, looking for employment?
I see my timing is perfect.
And yeah, even though they aren't animals, they still make animal sounds sometimes. It's a bit jarring. For now, he goes to Geppetto's house to purchase Pinocchio. He's heard the story about the living puppet and thinks he'll need one for his upcoming performance. He pokes and prods around our main character, which forces him to come out of hiding.
Stay. Boys do like bugs.
Bugs.
Don't they? They like to tease them and twist them.
Please, Lorenzini.
Shh. Shh. Oh. Name your price.
I do like the performance put on for Lorenzini, since he reminds me of the coachman without his cartoon devil face. But he doesn't get Pinocchio this time, so he buys some other puppets instead. Afterwards, Pinocchio goes after this boy who's playing the flute. He ends up following a whole group of boys to school.
Pinocchio, show yourself right now. Because I'm not leaving this house to look for you again.
Joke's on you, he's at least attempting to learn in school. First time I've ever seen him in an actual school anyway. Here we get John Sessions as the professor, and some snooty smart kid.
Tears. Expressions of the soul. Do any other creatures look so deeply within themselves?
More importantly, we have our Lampwick of the movie. He makes fun of our little wooden hero, as usual, but because he's still naive, Pinocchio punches him in the face without knowing why it's a bad idea. The professor steps in to ask what the hell is going on, and this happens.
No.
No surprise there, though given how he's been in his learning phase the whole time, I didn't think he'd have a mischievous side yet. So he lies enough for his nose to reach the teacher, and because he has to sneeze... In fairness, you could have stepped aside. You did this to yourself. Pinocchio gets kicked out of school, Geppetto finally decides to get off his ass and look for him, and now comes the next life lesson about eating. Pinocchio goes into the bakery, and shenanigans ensue. Now, even though the wife did most of the damage here, Geppetto is still held responsible for his son's actions. He gets thrown in jail, and Pinocchio is now left alone, made all the more obvious when he sees some boys with their fathers. Hugged by a father, wish I could be part of that world. And now, we get our cricket for this movie. Huh, they actually killed the cricket character in this. Does that mean he'll come back as a ghost? He returns home, laments about not doing anything right, and sure enough, the cricket returns. And he can talk.
Say, do you always squish someone before being formally introduced?
Are you a termite?
Oh, please.
So you're not gonna eat me?
Thanks for the offer, but I'm on a low-wood diet.
And since he glows sometimes, I have to assume that he is a ghost. Now, Pepe is voiced by David Doyle, but originally he was voiced by Wallace Shawn. You can even hear him in an early trailer for the movie, and even received a credit for it.
You just gotta wise up, Pine Cone. You're a puppet!
I suppose the new voice fits better with Pepe, since he looks more refined and genteel, but otherwise this cricket is going to help Pinocchio become a proper boy. Sadly, the CGI for him doesn't fit well with the rest of the movie. But the teaching can wait, because Pinocchio has to go on trial with his father. Geppetto has to pay a fine or stay in prison. He's so poor that he's probably forced into the second option, but...
I propose the court allow me to pay the fines for this poor, impoverished peasant.
All I ask is to keep Pinocchio in return.
Wouldn't this technically count as child extortion? Well, after much deliberation, Geppetto has no choice but to give up his only son.
But I want to be with you.
I know. But you see, there's no other choice.
You're my papa.
I can't be your papa. You're made of wood. You're not flesh. You're not a real boy.
Jeez, I don't think even the book version of him gave up like that. So disheartened, Pinocchio goes with Lorenzini. Poor Geppetto, forced into giving up a loved one to avoid a crueler fate. Anyway, puppet show time. Even the adults are enthralled. It's like their own Thunderbolt fantasy.
I see gold out there. Little pieces of gold.
You stay away from the little pieces of gold. At least Pinocchio looks adjusted to his new life because he's showing some singing talent. He's also being paid well, but...
Okay, kiddo, now we're in the swing of things. Lesson number 1, beware of temptation. Applause may be good for the moment, but love is everlasting.
Oh jeez. I'm really underselling it when I say Pepe's CGI is bad. The tracking on his movements does not work with what he interacts with half the time. And they really love getting close-ups of him. But anyway, Pepe warns Pinocchio that Lorenzini doesn't truly love him. And what's worse, he has an evil master plan in the works. I guess he saw the rest of the movie. But the show must go on. We then get a funny moment of him landing in Champagne and then getting launched after the wine glass breaks. Next up is a battle scene where Pinocchio fights a fire-breathing monster. Some other puppets are also in danger of getting destroyed, even if they aren't alive. So Pinocchio chooses to protect them too. I guess these puppets gotta stick together, and the end result is the stage catching fire. Well done, Pinocchio! Our hero manages to rescue 2 of the puppets that Geppetto sold to Lorenzini earlier. Lorenzini tries to find out where Pinocchio is, and we see him jumping off a bridge to escape his captors. He's now just floating away in the water. Not bad. Though I'm surprised no one spotted him after he jumped off the bridge. Leona shows up to tell Geppetto about where Pinocchio might be. She thinks he'd go somewhere that feels the safest. So in Pinocchio's case, that means the forest he came from. We see him there, but Pepe just keeps yapping away.
Have I told you what an honor it is to be your cricket? You were brilliant last night. You stayed cool when things got hot. You did the right thing.
Now you're just being annoying, on top of being a CGI mess. If he wasn't talking that much, it'd make the moment of Pinocchio finding his original tree a little more dramatic. But he's later attacked by a woodpecker, which leads him away from Volpe and Feline. He ends up in a monastery, where Pinocchio leaves behind a gold coin he earned as a performer. Yes, the sound of money is what brings them here. Volpe and Feline pretend to be religious folk, which tricks our hero into forking over the rest of his gold. This is done by getting him to plant his earnings on the ground to make a money tree. And this plot point is something seen in the original source material. Next, Pinocchio is instructed by the thieves to watch this clock for an hour, which gives them time to unearth the money and get out. So here's Pepe to chide our hero for being too trusting.
And let me guess, you ignored your instincts, didn't you?
Maybe.
You don't give maybe to the president of the cricket union.
It's really apparent they wanted Pepe to be like Jiminy Cricket, to the point of making him slightly anthro. But unlike Rankin Bass's version of the cricket, they go for a more lifelike cricket, which comes off as uncanny. It would have made more sense to go for a little puppet or an animatronic. Anyway, Pinocchio learns the hard way that he just got scammed. But no time for any real self-reflection. It's time for the Land of Toys subplot.
Come with us, we're going to the greatest place. It's great, there's no school, no rules, you can do whatever you want. It's just for boys.
Well, depending on the adaptation, some caravans let girls in too. Pinocchio joins the caravan right when Geppetto spots him for a bit. The puppet maker has been looking for his boy all day with Leona, and they lose track once the caravan goes through a hidden waterfall cavern. Now, welcome to Terra Magica, which is like Pleasure Island without the cigars and booze. Geppetto and Leona only manage to find Pinocchio's hat in the water, so they assume that Pinocchio is now lost at sea. This causes Geppetto to start rolling out there, but not before this little nugget.
The day I carved that heart in the tree, you accepted my brother's proposal.
25 years you take to tell me, and I'm supposed to wait. You're too late. I'm not waiting.
Awkward. Pepe tells Pinocchio the "you'll become a jackass" thing from the book. And then Lorenzini shows up, because he runs this place. Why am I not surprised? Anyway, he recites a warning about drinking the water here. That's going to be important later. But for now, we get Lampwick shooting Pinocchio with a gun. It doesn't kill our hero, just puts holes in his chest. But next, it's time to ride the roller coaster, after this one guy gives them tickets. Not sure why he needs to do that. I thought this place was free to destroy. They'd probably go on it at some point. Just before that happens, we see Lorenzini overseeing the selling of donkeys. Where did he get them from?
I guess some guys just can't hold their water.
So, drinking this water turns you into your true self? I gotta say, even though this process isn't as painful as what's described in the book, this is still pretty freaky. Fortunately, Pinocchio doesn't fully transform, because the water didn't stay in him. I guess being shot has its uses. But still, he's chased by the baddies, who don't realize it's him from the big puppet show. Pinocchio is finally caught, but only after he frees the donkeys. It's a good thing those donkey ears were wooden and not organic like in the Disney version. Anyway, our hero tries to tell everyone about what happened to the other children. No one believes him, but he does get Lampwick to at least kick Lorenzini into the water, which leads to this.
He's turning into a monster! Look at his face!
And I guess that's enough to convince the kids that it's time to leave. Leona tracks down Pinocchio and lets him know about Geppetto. So of course, Pinocchio decides to go after him.
You think I'm going to wait for both of you? You don't even know how to swim!
Now, supposedly, Leona is meant to be the replacement for the Blue Fairy. Even now, I don't know why when all she does is give the occasional speech. As Pinocchio rows, he gets stalked by something underwater. And if we learned anything from previous adaptations, is that there are giant fish that are out to eat you. Pinocchio does the sensible thing by shunning Pepe in a clamshell. Thank goodness. And I gotta say, the inside of this creature looks far too unsettling to be in a kid's movie like this. And Geppetto is here too, making puppets out of fish corpses. Anyway, the two happily reunite. The monster doesn't seem to like happy reunions, so it's time to escape.
It smells like rotten chili peppers in here.
There's your proof that Lorenzini is the terrible dogfish of this story. As they climb his throat, Pinocchio starts acting like he hates Geppetto. But really...
It's a lie!
I wish I never found you.
They cause the throat to expand enough to make Lorenzini choke, forcing him to spit out the two while he sinks back into the water and supposedly drowns. Not the most impressive death of a giant sea creature, I admit. Now that they made it back to land, Pinocchio and Geppetto share a loving embrace. Our hero even starts forming tears, which reach his heart and cause him to become a real boy. I don't know why, but happy ending, I guess. Even though we still have 10 minutes left. Pepe decides to stay with him. Whoopee. The gang pass by where Volpe and Feline are, and Pinocchio tricks them by looking for gold in Terra Magica.
Would I lie?
Yes, very much so. As the movie winds down, we get an indication that the transformed kids are human again. Not sure how, but whatever. Lampwick is back as a friend this time. It looks like Leona will be hanging with Geppetto more often. I wonder what Geppetto's brother has to say about that, if he's still alive. And as for the two thieves, they got turned into their spirit animals.
Just hate that kid.
Not as much as I hate you.
Poetic justice. So, this one feels like a mixed bag. The highlights include the practical effects, the sets, the character designs, and the acting. There is clearly effort here. But the special effects show their age, especially the CGI. The changes to the story don't really add a whole lot to the overall product, and Pepe really became an annoyance over time. Some scenes feel a bit longer than they need to be, despite the hour-and-a-half runtime. So this movie's spin on the story feels a bit futile in comparison to those other adaptations. There are some wholesome scenes and entertaining bits, but as a whole, it's nothing I could recommend. The only way it could get any worse is if Pinocchio had a completely wooden personality.
Father, when can I leave to be on my own? I've got the whole world to see.
Forget I said anything. Next time, we got fish people to work with. I'll see you then.